You're tuned into the Philly Fans Podcast with your hosts Daniel McDevitt and Ethan Whitney.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 7 of the Philly Fans Podcast. A lot to go over. Small week break here. Now we're back and better than ever. A lot to talk about. A lot for Phillies history, a lot for Phillies news, and a lot of news around the league.
Exactly. A lot of Phillies history and a lot of major league history. And I think to segue that into the point, the Phillies, as of their 50th game, I believe it was, I forget what the exact record was at the time, but it was the best 50 game start record wise since the 2001 Mariners, who went on to win 116 games that season, which still stands as the MLB's single season winning record. And I think Rob Thompson put it the best, though. That team did not win the World Series, so there's still a lot of work to be done, but obviously just another highlight on just this amazing start to the season for the Phillies.
Well, before we get into it, just want to mention I'm Daniel McDevitt, your host, with my co-host, of course, Ethan Whitney. Pleasure as always, Ethan. But I just want to
Absolutely.
mention one of the things I kind of took away from the 50 game start is something unusual, and that is this team is never usually starting hot. It's usually a cold
Yeah.
repetition until you get to maybe September, pushing August. But that's when it really starts hitting them that they got to start winning games, and that's that's really where it comes in. They're never usually hot.
No, never. And that's why this has just been such a pleasant surprise. I mean, if you just scroll through, even just scroll through Twitter, I saw after the Phillies game, there's just people just posting screenshots of the record last year on the exact date and the record this year on the exact date. And it's just like, I think this year and last year, it's maybe a 14 game swing in terms of the wins, like 28 to 41 or something like that. It's just frustrating. It was always frustrating to watch. Like, we shouldn't be playing this poorly, and now it's just all coming together early in the season like it should have been before.
Yeah, and I know there's like a lot of good things that come out of like the Phillies really like winning the division, but I kind of stand alone here in a sense of I don't like the idea of winning the division. I like the idea of getting in at the wild card because of the fact that it's proven that teams that win the division and have to face a wild card opponent are usually coming in at a disadvantage. Yes, they get more home games and yes, they get a little break, but a break in the MLB is different than a break in the NFL. I mean, your team just gets cold over a break, and that's what I think a lot of teams that win the division dislike. That they have to wait to play and they have to wait till these wild card series ends.
Yeah, I've heard that. I think they even floated this up on the ESPN broadcast when we were on Saturday or Sunday Night Baseball. Excuse me. I'm not. I don't believe that this is exactly as big of a deal as people make it out to be. Because if you think of since they changed the system, the teams that have been known for blowing in as a one seed have been the Orioles last year, who got handled by the Rangers, the Braves the last two seasons, and the Dodgers the last two seasons. The Dodgers last year, in my opinion, lost because, to be brutally honest, all of their starting pitching was either injured or suspended in the case of some of their pitchers there. The Braves, I think we just Braves. I think that's where the biggest argument can be made. But at the same time, you can just there are teams that are just choking teams, and there are teams that are just have other teams' numbers. Which I think that's where the biggest argument can be made. And then there's the
Phillies have never lost to the Atlanta Braves in a playoff series.
yeah. It's
So
just sometimes that's just something that happens. It's inexplicable. But I guess I could see the argument there. And then the Orioles, I think it was just a matter of being inexperienced. They were just so young last year, and the Rangers had so much experience on that roster. I would have picked the Rangers if it was a wild card series, if it was the ALCS. I just trust experience in that situation. And then you look at teams like the Houston Astros. They've been the one seed, or they've had a bye. I believe they've been the one seed the last two, or they were the two seed last year. Whatever. They had a bye the last two seasons, and they've gone to a World Series and won it, and gone to an ALCS, which was a thriller against the Rangers. So I think if you have the talent and if you have the means, you still should get it done with a bye.
yeah. And speaking of the Braves, big news coming out of the MLB.
Yep.
One of the faces and honestly one of the best players in the MLB, except for in the postseason, Ronald Acuna Jr. out for the season. Second ACL surgery he's ever had. He's preparing for. Just a huge loss to the MLB community, but yeah, it's going to be really tough for the Braves. I mean, you already have Spencer Strider out. They've basically taken away their two best players on each side of the ball. You have your
Absolutely.
best pitcher and you have your
Yep.
best positional player.
And you have two of the guys, Ronald Acuna, coming off his unbelievable MVP season, and like you have one of the best player in the NL last year, and one of the best pitchers in baseball. Obviously, Ronald Acuna, obviously also one of the best players in baseball, so that's just brutal. And this injury just horrible for the sport. Obviously, we'll both pull for the Phillies, but you hate to see it. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
wish
100%.
him quick
Yeah,
recovery and
best
all of that.
wishes to Ronald Acuna. But
Yep,
one of the things I kind of worry about them seeing in Edwin Diaz is Edwin Diaz hasn't been the same pitcher he has been since his ACL tear. If you notice that, I mean,
hmm
we talked about this. We touched on this last episode when
we
the
did.
Phillies took them on in the Mets series. But Edwin Diaz, ever since he tore his ACL at the World Baseball Classic, hasn't really been that same electric pitcher that he was originally. And I mean, it's been showing this season, and it kind of leads me to believe: is there a worry about Ronald Acuna becoming the same way as Edwin Diaz?
I think inside the Braves organization, there has to be a worry. I mean, anytime a player of Ronald Acuna's magnitude goes down, not just for his first time, but for his second time, which would eliminate him for a full season, there has to be a worry throughout the clubhouse and throughout upper management. But to very briefly segue this back into the Phillies, I'm interested to see what you think about this. I think the Ronald Acuna injury has changed what a successful regular season looks like for the Phillies now because I think it went from maybe we win the division, maybe we don't. The Braves are still very talented. I don't think there's an excuse to not win the division right now.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sets a whole different picture for the NL East and how it's going to finish because now the Braves aren't really looking as much of a powerhouse as they were early in the season, and it kind of opens up things before for the MLB to change around because you have the Washington Nationals quick on their tail to take this second spot.
Absolutely, it just changes the entirety landscape of the NL. And don't count out the Braves, though. I know, obviously, the last time he went down with that ACL tear, I was gonna say miraculously, depends on how you feel about it, but they went on to lift the World Series trophy. But sticking in the NL East, we talked about this briefly last episode, but the Mets are a complete mess right now. Though I think there was a graphic that they didn't win a single series in May or something like that, and then you have Jorge Lopez going on air on SNY post game after being ejected, throwing his glove into the stands, and calling them the worst effing team in the whole MLB. People thought he was misquoted, and he doubled down on the statement, saying he was both talking about a teammate or himself as a
Yeah, no,
teammate, I believe, and
it
the
all
team.
boils down to bad managing, and you kind of see that with the Jorge Lopez situation, but it's just bad managing, and that's where it all boils down. I mean, you have a team of I'd say a few superstar athletes. Well, I mean, not currently, but who could be cultivated into superstar athletes. I mean, there is no lack of talent on the team. It's just purely bad managing, and when you have a guy like Jorge Lopez who's clearly annoyed, I personally wouldn't say the thing to do after he gets ejected is to what is it, deterred free agency?
Yeah, they just
Yeah,
DFA'd him, I think.
it made him a deferred free agent, so
Yeah.
he's hoping to be signed by other teams, and I'm no doubt that another team's going to go for him. I mean, it could be the start of the Mets cleaning house, but it boils down to bad managing.
To build off your point of the Mets cleaning house, I think a question that has been raised for years, and I think especially this year because the Mets are bad again, is Pete Alonso on the trading block in New York? They haven't worked out an extension with him yet. Does he want to even stay in New York? I think his future is more up in the air than it's ever been in his 10 years of Met.
I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I really see Pete Alonso as an overrated player, and I mean that's just my opinion, but I'll explain why. I mean, I feel like he isn't as much of a contact, small ball kind of player. He is just he's like Kyle Schwarber in a way. But I mean, I feel like Kyle Schwarber has seen his glimpses of just being an everyday player, able to get on base and just do his thing. But I don't know. Pete Alonso, I feel like his peak has ever since he won two home run derbies. He's just peaked since that point. And I mean, I really think he hasn't been as remarkable as he used to be.
Yeah, I think the value of Pete Alonso is obviously, compensation, all that, and just who he is as a player is a whole different conversation. But I think it's undeniable that if you're a contending team in the NL or the AL, And if there's a lack of pop in your lineup, I think there's going to be no shortage of teams calling Steve Cohen and throwing whatever they need to get for Pete Alonso. I don't think it's going to be. My only concern for the Mets would be is that someone's going to ask for too much because at the end of the day, the Mets don't have leverage here because they're either going to try to find a way to get him extended, and from the looks of it, they're failing to this point, or they're going to trade him because teams know that if they don't trade him, they could there's a maybe 50-50 chance they lose him for nothing.
I don't know. I think I really wouldn't see a team uh buying big for Pete Alonso. I mean, he has really lost his value since the player he was. He's not he he really just isn't the same Pete Alonso. And I mean, I don't think people should value him as like a young Pete Alonso. I mean, that's just I don't see any team really making a huge jump to trade for Pete Alonso.
Pete Alonso, his stats currently pulling up. 239 average, 13 home runs, 30 RBIs. So to your point, definitely not the Pete Alonso that, won back-to-back home run derbies. And even as a Phillies fan, it was admittedly entertaining to watch him go at the home run derby. I mean, he killed it
Mhm.
there, you know what I mean? But I think there's still a team out there. I feel like there's got to be one team out there,
I've
maybe
never seen
one.
something more embarrassing in my life than a dude who goes into a locker room, starts
That was,
powerlifting,
yeah, when
then
he
goes
did
out into the field and loses the home run derby.
there was that picture floating around of him like meditating in the locker room or
Yeah,
something.
he was meditating. He was lifting, I think it was like 230 in the locker room,
You
and then goes out and tries to win. Like I really I can't say I like Pete Alonso.
I
I really
don't.
never thought he was
Yeah,
entertaining.
I don't dislike him, but I think there's got to be a team out there that is lacking pop in their lineup. I mean, I think even similar to just I think the most recent example you can give of it is the Marlins trading for Josh Bell last season to try to add some pop into their lineup, which had limited success. Obviously, Pete Alonso is much better than Josh Bell, but no disrespect to Josh Bell, but
And it
I
didn't
think
work.
he's either going to get traded and extended for. I think he'll be willing to take a pay cut on a competitive team, or I think a bad team's gonna throw a lot of money at him in free agency, and it's not that he's gonna play poorly, but he's not gonna play up to the contract that they gave him. But definitely an interesting situation going down there.
Yeah, so my guess is still alive for the NL East playoff picture because I said it was going to be the Phillies, the Braves, the Nationals, the Marlins, and the Mets. So if things can keep going my way, I'd be perfect. I think I might have said I think I might have switched around Nationals and Marlins, but I'm not sure. But my
Might
guess
have been
since
wrong
episode
too.
one might still be alive. So we'll see.
Episode one. Yes, we'll check back to that come October, definitely. And I think to transition into something that is rejoiced by me, by you, by any fan in Major League Baseball, I think this was the one thing that anyone could agree on. It was that absolutely nobody liked Angel Hernandez. And he has officially announced his retirement from Major League Baseball. There was that whole lawsuit where he sued the MLB. That's a whole nother story, but just a great moment for Major League Baseball, and it's just don't come back. Essentially, is the message I'm trying to send you. You can enjoy retirement, Angel.
Yeah, I mean I've seen a lot of things on like TikTok and like other places like of just them trying to like I don't know what the words are like sympathize with Angel Hernandez, like trying to show that like he's a good guy, but at the same time like he's a good guy, but he's an awful umpire. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
he is purely blind. I mean, there's no way around it. This dude just cannot see the plate for the life of him. That's just he has such a short temper of throwing people out of
he
games. Like,
does. When he threw
I
out
really wish
Vargas
the
in
MLB would
shortstop.
crack down on umpires.
Yeah, obviously there's the difficulties with the umpires association there. And I think, it felt like every other week during the MLB regular season, you'll get a John Boy Rip leading breakdown of just chaos going on the field because he missed a call or something like that. And
Yeah,
it's just like you're watching this and it's like this it seems almost fake. Like you don't want to believe what you're seeing. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But,
Like he does it
definitely
on purpose.
gonna be gonna be different without him. Obviously much better. I do want to touch on one thing before we transition to another headline. There's an argument that I've seen going around where it's like he's not that bad because look at how umpires were 30 years ago. I don't think you should just be. I think that's stupid because you're comparing bad with bad. Like it can both be true. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've seen that. That's just something that I wanted to briefly touch on there as we move on here.
Well, I mean that argument is pretty different. I mean the whole MLB landscape was much different. It
Yeah,
was a much more rough and I mean it was honestly a much more rough and violent game. You had steroids out the wazoo.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think that argument is just I don't know. I mean if you want to say anything more about it, I think it's just dumb, but
I didn't look into it that much. I just was scrolling through. I was like, I think it was a thread or something. It was like, why he's not that bad. It's like I'm not wasting my time on this.
that's wild.
But yeah,
But
the oh, you're gonna yeah.
so
If you
you wanna lead us into the stats part of this?
no, yeah, absolutely. The MLB making headlines that I think exceed the MLB itself. It's a very interesting topic. They are officially incorporating statistics from the Negro Leagues, and that means that specifically Josh Gibson will now be the MLB's all-time leader in batting average at .372. A a lot of people, very excited to finally see phenomenal ball players like Josh Gibson get their recognition. It's very it's just interesting move, you know what I mean, to make so far ahead. I think there's a lot of people who are not exactly happy with it for just baseball reasons. I don't know if you've been seeing that. I think it was something that I saw that I think worded it very well.
Yeah, I
I'll
think
put it in a
there
moment
was a
there.
few arguments about it that like it's a different league, but I mean I think it's pretty cool. It combines baseball as a whole, and it's honestly yeah. I mean I think just boils down to it. It's really cool that they're finally incorporating the stats, but there is a question that lies that I've been thinking about with this, and I think it needs to be addressed by the MLB. Should Ichiro be the all-time hit leader now? If we're going to incorporate stats from other leagues, should Ichiro be the all-time hit leader?
It does open up a massive can of worms for that, especially as there's gonna be more people coming from different leagues. You know what I mean? It's not gonna get any
Yeah,
less of an issue. But
because
I
I mean,
think one
you
of
can make
the
the argument that
yeah,
if that's the same league, then why isn't what is it, new Japanese professional JPB or something
I think yeah,
NJP?
maybe
I don't know what the specifics are, but it was the main
Japanese.
league in Japan, Japanese baseball. I will just call it that. But
Yeah,
yeah, so I mean, I think Ichiro should be put down as the all-time hit leader. I mean, it was put out that he's like the all-time hit leader of baseball, but he should be the all-time hit leader of the MLB. I I don't think there's any argument if you're going to combine stats from other leagues, you got to look into this one. It's a
especially
huge jump.
because if you have let's say just the Dodgers, you say they go win the World Series and their best player is Shohei Ohtani, a player from Japan. I think Japan has some of the most talented players in baseball. Like there's no lack of talent over there. Is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? It's there are players
Yeah.
who are most of the greatest player, like the greatest guy who has the chance to be the greatest player of all time in Shohei Ohtani because he can do it both, pitch and hit. Came from Japan. You know what I mean? So I think that's definitely I think that's gonna end up being addressed eventually. I don't think they can ignore it, but definitely an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, so move into some of the main Phillies stats and everything. That is Bryce Harper moving into an MV3 season if he can keep it up. Um, but I think the more intriguing stat about Bryce Harper that has been floating around in Phillies media recently is that he has the most ejections among active players with 21 ejections. The second place, to put in reference, is Manny Machado and Tim Anderson with 9. So he has more than double this second place.
That is, I
He is
mean, that
quite the
makes sense.
troublemaker.
That makes sense. You know what I mean? But Manny Machado being on there isn't what I would have expected. Tim Anderson adds up, but Manny
Yeah,
Machado
Tim Anderson had that he was the
got
one who got
knocked
was he
out
the
by
one who got knocked
Jared.
out? Yeah.
Yep,
I wasn't sure if it was him or the other guy, but yeah. If that's the correct guy, then he got rocked.
he got it was the electric call from I think
I
it was
saw
the
a
Cleveland Sports Radio.
I saw a pretty cool thing, like a thread on Twitter the other day about how baseball could incorporate fighting like hockey, and I thought it would be one of the like best things that baseball could ever. Could you imagine postseason? Bryce Harper just turns over to Orlando Arcia as he's running around the bases and just drops the
Punches
gloves
him.
and just like instead of the benches clearing, because the whole benches clearing idea is I hate it so much. The bullpen should not be able to leave the bullpen.
The bullpen, I think, is stretching it.
Yeah, the bullpen should not be able to leave the bullpen. And I don't know. I mean, certain people should be able to leave the dugout. Your
I think
designated fighters. Nah. I mean like it should be like a certain point where if enough people come out of the bullpen, they start getting thrown out. I mean not bullpen, dugout. Sorry, dugout.
I think if we could just set up a thing where it's like, hey, Bryce Harper and like you said, the example Orlando Arcia, they're going at it. Let them go at it. Winner takes all. You know what I mean? Just
Yes, I mean it's
let
just
them duke it
hockey.
out.
If they fight, both players get ejected.
I
And it
think,
just
yeah,
allows them to duke it out.
I think especially baseball is like, along with hockey, is the only other sport that could really incorporate fighting. Basketball, I don't think that would really ever work, and obviously football, someone would probably die. But
Yeah. I mean, I feel like
baseball, that'd definitely be entertaining. Have you seen
it,
that?
it, it could work in so well.
Have you seen
And
that
I mean
picture of
if the
Yasiel Puig when he was on the Reds? And it's just that
I think I
picture.
heard this
He's got
quote.
his fist up, and basically the entire Pirates team is in front of him, and it looks like he's just about to take on that entire team.
Oh yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that one.
That's so good. I love it.
But I figure you're gonna bring up oh no, sorry, I was gonna bring this up. The bullpen. If the bullpen really wants to like be a part of it, the bullpen should just start slugging. Just send Jose Alvarado in there to clean
Yeah,
up.
got your enforcers.
We'll throw them there'll be people thrown off the balcony at the
They're
bullpen
jumping
at Citizens
over.
Bank Park.
Imagine
Two-story
like
bullpen.
they're running across like it'd be chaos.
It'd be great.
It would
It
be
it
great
would
though.
it would change the sport forever in a much better way. I mean,
That
this is
would
how
draw
they
eyes to the game.
intended the game to be played back in the 1800s.
This is how they probably played the game in
This
the
is how the founding
1800s.
fathers wanted it to be.
Just
But
that is a really specific.
Edmundo Souza being the unsung hero, coming in for Trey Turner as of recently, and he's doing fantastic job. But he's batting 304, 4 home runs, 15 RBIs, and an OPS of 949. So I mean, he is filled in perfectly for that spot. I mean, he's obviously not Trey Turner, but he has just been coming in clutch in so many different ways. And I literally have no bad things to say about Edmundo Souza currently.
No, none at all. And I know we discussed this on earlier episodes in the podcast, but one of the problems that the Phillies faced last year was depth in the lineup, or depth from the bench. Really, there wasn't many, especially that was highlighted when Bryce Harper was out, because you had Jake Cave being an everyday guy, and that's not really a recipe to success. But when you have guys like, I know Cody Clemens just got placed on the IL, but you got guys like Cody Clemens who are doing great, Edmundo Sosa who's doing great, and it's just adds that depth to the lineup. You got guys like Whit Merrifield who isn't doing great, but he can play anywhere. You know what I mean? So it just helps add depth to the lineup. Whit Merrifield, obviously a whole nother discussion, but Edmundo Sosa, just unbelievable what he's been able to add to this lineup.
Yeah. So what was I supposed to say? Oh yeah, so another big issue. I mean, you're talking about depth, and you're touching it on that is um Brandon Marsh getting injured last night.
Yeah.
Pulled his hamstring. I remember I was watching my brother, and we looked at it immediately. It was clear he was
Yeah.
grabbing his hammies there, but apparently so far nothing serious. He should be back soon. Was he placed on day to day or did they move him to IL?
Him and Cody Clemens, I believe within the last hour, moved to the 10-day injured list.
Do you have any information on if he how long he's gonna be on IL? I can check.
Just the 10-day. That's, I think, all that's been released.
Yeah, it's not bad because biggest worry was that he was gonna
Non,
be 3 to 6 weeks
yeah, that
like Trey
non-contact
Turner.
injuries are always scary.
Once I saw him like reach for the leg, I was like, oh no, and then he grabbed the hammy. I was like,
Yeah,
thank God.
especially when it looked like it was. It looked like when they showed the replay on ESPN, it looked like he had like limped a little when he like
Mhm.
rounded first base, walked back. It looked like he was in pain a little bit there, and
He
then
just pushed it a little too much.
something just gave out on the way between second and third. But obviously, we're just grateful it's only 10-day injured list. Like we can deal with that. You know what I mean? As long as he's just gonna be back, because the lineup without Turner and Brandon Marsh would be very difficult to sustain. But he'll be out for the time he needs. He'll rest up. They're gonna give him all the time that he needs, obviously, just for the value he brings to this team alone. And just definitely dodged a bullet there because that could have been bad.
Yeah, so ballpark has been electric lately. So selling out crowds in on Tuesday nights, like it's crazy.
It's
So
unbelievable.
I was there Friday night against St. Louis Cardinals, posted on
Mm,
the Philly Fans Podcast Twitters and social medias, everything. You guys can check us out at Philly Fans Podcast on Twitter and on
please
TikTok.
do.
You can check out our Spotify and our YouTube. You can follow us both at our plugs that should be around here. Yeah, there you go. Got it perfectly.
There we
That's
go.
for our video listeners or video watchers, audio listeners. It's at D McDev 225 and at Ethan underscore W6. But one of the things I want to touch on is I was at the game and I talked about it on the episode before, episode 6, that the MLB needs more closer entrances. It needs to be more electric, more fan engaging. And as I was there, we were heading into the top of the eighth, and no, sorry, top of the ninth, and Jeff Hoffman was heading in to close, and the lights turned down the stadium, and they began to play "Alive" by Kid Cudi as the lights like went around the stadium.
Oh
It
man.
was electric. The entire stadium erupted. It was awesome. I'm personally like a huge Kid Cudi fan, so song choice was perfect for me. I'd never seen anything like it in an MLB ballpark, and it was honestly just amazing.
I mean,
I've
yeah,
never seen anything better.
you text me the video of it, and I immediately respond, that's going straight to the TikTok, and it did. And just, it's like they're listening, you know what I mean? It was electric, and that's just something that, just from a fan perspective, that's just amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
It
mean
was
that's
so
what I said.
cool.
Like all everything about building a good baseball team is just fan experience. Make them happy, and that's how you
100%.
do it. Like I feel like it's a win-win scenario. Like your fans gonna be happy, like oh that was awesome, and
Yeah.
your closer is gonna be pumped up. Like there is no cooler situation than going in with a packed stadium, almost a sellout, and you just see Jeff Hoffman run. I mean, you're Jeff Hoffman. You're walking out to "Alive" by Kid Cudi as the lights are flickering. That's awesome. But same thing at that game is it was on a few troll accounts for the Phillies. Is that the Phillies put on the jumbotron for the Cardinals Phillies game, the attendance, and then it says the Phillies and the Marlins, thank you. And everybody in the stadium's looking at each other like I don't think we're playing the Marlins.
I did not
And
see that.
Dan Baker goes on. He goes, "Sorry, the Cardinals."
Did you see, speaking of just things that happened at Phillies games, I don't remember if this was Saturday or Sunday's game, but the organist for the Phillies was playing Not Like Us for like, they were just in between at bats. You just hear like the beat to Not Like Us. And you're like, I thought I was going crazy until I checked Twitter. Someone had found the audio of it. I'm like, damn, like
It's wild.
holding nothing back. But Jeff Hoffman has obviously been electric.
We know
Switching
whose side
things,
he's on.
yeah, switching things over to the plate. Kyle Schwarber has been having a very interesting season, and I saw a graphic on Twitter. I believe it was from Phillies Tailgate, where he leads left-handed batters in hits off of left-handed pitchers. And that is just so unbelievably different from the Kyle Schwarber we saw last year, where if he wasn't sending this ball dang near out of the stadium, he wasn't hitting the ball. But this year, he's been much more balanced. Personally, I love it. I think it makes his game that much better because he hasn't lost any power. He's just gotten better at shortening up when he needs to. And I think that has just added such a great aspect to his game. I'm loving it. I'm curious to see what you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle Schwarber's been much more reliable than he was last year. I mean, he's coming in big spots and really just not being the guy who hits one home run a game and then he's silent. He's
Mhm.
he's really found his place on the team and just playing some good baseball. I mean, he's coming in clutch and great points of the game like he always has. Not of course, but I mean, he's just been a different beast this so far this season.
And I think something that came to mind immediately when I thought of it was last year against the Diamondbacks. One of the main things, like, None of these guys that we're paying all this money to got on base. It was really pathetic. It was just something that was highlighted. It was something that was going to stick with this team until the next season came around because it was a missed opportunity. Do you maybe think that he's doing this because he knew that when you face a pitcher like Brandon Pfaadt for some reason, who was just phenomenal that series against containing the long ball against the Phillies, like Brandon Pfaadt isn't Jacob DeGrom, but there's going to be a pitcher that just has your number, and you're only trying to blast the ball 450 feet. So you'd have to imagine maybe some of this adjustment is to make sure that his game is deeper than it was before, so there isn't just one guy out there on the mound who just happens to have your number.
Yeah, I think it comes down to he wants to have a lot of choice. No, I don't think choice is the word for it, but like ability against different things in the league. I mean, against different people in the league and different pitchers and just different pitching types, and he's done a really good job on cracking down on that.
Yeah, especially like last year, it was Brandon Pfaadt. No one, no disrespect to the Diamondbacks, no disrespect to Brandon Pfaadt. Before basically he started in game one against excuse me, game one against the Brewers, no one had heard of Brandon Pfaadt. And he came out there, he to his credit, he performed. I mean, he's one of the reasons that they went on that magical run. And just like you said, I think not choice, but just being able to have that deeper levels to his game than he has had. Not really the last couple seasons, just really last year.
Yeah, and I think on that point, it's gonna do it for us as we have surpassed the 30-minute mark. It's been a good episode as always. A lot to touch on, a lot coming up for Phil. Actually, you know what? Before we one final question, actually, before we close things out here on the podcast, and that is, does Reese Hoskins deserve a standing O?
Absolutely.
The answer is,
I don't
of
think.
course.
Okay, I was
He
gonna say, where are we
returns
going
home
with
tonight.
this?
Yeah, no, there is no second argument to this. I am 100%. He is my favorite Philadelphia Philly of all time.
He
Reese Hoskins is going to get a standing O tonight.
he might get 3 or 4 if we're being honest,
He's gonna
but
get
just
he's gonna get 16 by the time we're done.
he might get one just for fielding the ball. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah,
one of the most
I
beloved
mean
athletes in this
it could be
state.
a situation like of Chase Utley where he came back to Philadelphia. He had a
Yeah,
grand slam against us, and crowd gave him a standing O.
Reese Hoskins is one of those guys where it's like, especially because it's not like he left us. He just kind of, because of his injury, which is obviously way out of his control, just kind of lost a spot in the lineup, especially
Yeah,
with Bryce being
The
the
Phillies
first
didn't want him
biggest
anymore,
favorite.
and the city of Philadelphia understood that he didn't want to leave, but he had to leave for the benefit of his career, and it's a bittersweet situation. I mean, I of course would say I'd still want him on this team. I'd move anyone, not anyone on this team for him, but I would definitely want to see him on a team that wins the World Series.
No, yeah, and the Brewers are doing phenomenal. They're 36-23, I believe, so it's great to see him having success. But that should just about do it for us on our 7th episode, if I'm correct.
Yep, seventh episode. Close it out, Ethan. Give us some plugs here.
All right, you can follow us at our individual Twitter holds here, I think. Mine
Yep,
is at Ethan underscore W6, yours at DMC Devitt25. Is that correct?
DMC Dev 25. That's me.
Yep. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and TikTok, where you can see clips of this podcast all the time. We try to get as much out there as we can. So please, if you are looking for more Philadelphia Phillies
He's
content, please
begging
go
you.
give it. Please give it a shot. We do, and
If you
I
enjoyed this
think that's all I
episode,
got.
make sure to subscribe. Do not forget to subscribe. Check out every single one of our podcasts on Spotify or YouTube. You can check the video version on YouTube. Yes, we have a video version. And you know what? If you're watching the video version, I'll leave a video of the a live entrance by Jeff Hoffman right now.